Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Preface of the Science of Creation series, which takes its name from a book read back in 1994 called The Science of Creation by Dr. Malachi Z. York. This series, much like the book, seeks to unlock the secrets of the universe in accordance of what was taught by the many ascended masters of carbon organic extraction from across the globe. Much of these teachings in later days have been whitewashed or simply ignored by Western hybrid albino scholars, which through their continual hatred towards the original carbon organic man and woman has led humanity on a path of hatred, division, and individualism, all controlled by a small cabal of hybrid albinos and their carbon organic masters known as the Bull. Please check out our other series, The Fallacy of Greece and Rome and the Origin of the Hebraic Israelite Mirrors, for further information, and subscribe to our content to follow our journey of the spiritual plane, celestial heavens, and terrestrial realm. We will start the series by presenting an overstanding of the nature of the universe and its mental capacity, and in later webisodes we will explain the elemental breakdown of the universes by way of the unified sciences of quantum physics, chemistry, and biology, which led to the creation of the first melanated carbon organic flesh and blood beings known as the Tar-Deneg, or Pygmies, as the first members of humanity on planet Earth, on into their evolutionary descendants being the so-called African/Black races, further on into the genetic admixtures referred to as mankind or a kind of man. This webisode is extracted from the very rare scroll called The Sacred Wisdom of Tehuti by Author Baba Tum Re. The Sacred Wisdom of Tehuti was presented as the Kyballion, when in fact it was a very poor interpretation by the Hyksos Canaanites of what they wished the great Hierophant Tehutis, Thoth's works for the world were about, and the onlookers were misinformed in order to sway the true seeker from the right path to the blinding light of the hybrid albino European belief systems, especially religion and the secret doctrines, were all but lost. In all of the depictions and drawings of Tehuti on the walls of tombs and monuments of Tamari, Egypt, you see Tehuti drawn with a green hue, which is what the Muslims refer to as El Qadir, again, stemming from ancient carbon organic Egypt. They are all the same with different names in different cultures. Originally named after Jehuti or Zehuti by the Egyptians, Tehuti was given his better-known name by the Greeks. They linked him with their own god, or theos, meaning deity, supreme being Hermes. The worship of Tehuti Thoth dates from the pre-dynastic period, which itself dates back before 10,500 years. And his standard appears on artifacts of this time. And his name Tehuti indicates he originated in the nomes of Dihut in Lower Egypt. He is represented as a man with the head of an ibis bird, which is often crowned by the crescent moon. The baboon is also sacred to him. For in Kemenu, also known as Hermopolis, he merged with the local baboon netter supreme being Hedgwer. The name Hedgwer, also spelled Hekor, is derived from the ancient Egyptian words hedge meaning black or dark and wer meaning great or powerful. Thus, the name Hedgwer can be interpreted as the Black One or the Dark One. Thoth was the Greeks' renderance of the Egyptian hieroglyphic Tehuti, scribe of the Neterot and personification of divine intellect, thus patron of learning and literature. The Greeks, who also were part Hyksos from Japheth's son Javan in Genesis 10 verse 2 of the Torah, as we have mentioned and covered in our series The Fallacy of Greece and Rome. The Hebrews proved that the Greek were also from the Hebrew by way of the biblical Noah's son, Japheth, whose son Javan was Ionian, which is Grecia, Greece, found in Strong's Greek and Hebrew lexicon under number 320 as Yavan. So the Hyksos were Hebrews and Greeks, as you will find in our Fallacy of Rome and Greece series, and our Who Are the Real Hebrews, Israelites and Moors as founders of Western civilization. Tehuti Thoth was intimately connected with a variety of lunar functions relating to cycles of time, measure, and movement. As divine scribe, Tehuti is frequently encountered in judgment scenes, recording the verdict returned by the balance, or in temple friezes, recording the deeds of the rulers into eternity. Tehuti Thoth is the recorder who keeps the records of our deeds and thoughts, the Nebu, Lord of divine words, or words of power, the thrice great. Tehuti is Neter, supreme being of peace and love between beings. Through wisdom, you will have peace and love between disagreeable beings. The right knowledge of self and others frees you from hate and prejudice. The right wisdom frees you from blindness about your past, and the right understanding frees you from hate of self and teaches you love for self and kind. Tehuti was the netter, supreme being of writing science, medicines, and formulas. He was the secretary of the netterot. He invented alchemy, and he has assisted mortals by writing many works of science, in particular books on solar biology and astronomy, mathematics, and medicine. 46 records of his is kept secret from the hands of the hybrid albino beastman, the evil one amongst various carbon organic tribes, families, and clans up to this day. Tehuti was the keeper of the records of existence and destiny and the time of the renewal of all history, which comes around every 24,000 years, each cycle, each moment, second, minute, hour, day, week, month, year, generation, jubilee, century, millennium, equinox, precession, and epoch. Tehuti came down from Septep, referred to today as Sirius, and he has also spent time in Sahu, also known as Orion, and was part of the Moon and Mars projects in the seeding of this planet. He has no mother or father, beginning of days, nor end of days. He was also known as Melchizedek el-Qadir, Rama, Yanyun, el-Kub, the spokesman for the deities. He was also found in the records of Dihut in Lower Egypt. There has been a great deal written about this great Egyptian netter, notwithstanding the countless references to his teachings in the many works upon religions today. This is whom they all worship in monotheism. There is no portion of the Egyptian teachings possessed by the world, which had been so closely guarded as the fragments of the Grand Hierophant Tehuti, his teachings which have come down over thousands of years, which have elapsed since the lifetime of its great founder, Tehuti, the scribe of the Netherot, supreme beings who dwelt in Old Tamari in the days when the present race of Hyksos, or Canaanite hybrid albino Hellenistic Greeks, were not yet grafted into existence. This took place only 6,000 years ago. The 6,000-year figure is going to keep reoccurring in the records of the hybrid albinos and their origins. Contemporary with Adam Ray, and, because legend be true, an instructor of that venerable teacher Tehuti was, and is the great central sun of all mystical orders whose knowledge serves to remove the mystery of light as truth, when supreme beings dwelled in darkness first and then said, "Let there be light." Light blinds. It's an outside force. All the fundamental and basic teachings embedded in the esoteric teachings of every school are traced back to Tehuti. Even the most ancient teachings of India, Tibet, and Sumeria undoubtedly have their roots in the original Tamarian teachings, without which there would be no Bible or Quran in existence. From the land of the Ganges, many advanced occultists wandered to that land of Egypt and sat at the feet of the master. All Greek masters as well went to Egypt to learn, and they obtained a very small portion of the truth, which explained and reconciled their divergent views. And thus the secret teacher was firmly established. The Grand Hierophant Tehuti and his influence was so great that in spite of the many wanderings from the path on the part of the centuries of teachers in these different lands, there is still the secret teachings called Hakka. His mystical teachings, as found today with the underground, hidden carbon organic Egyptian sacred orders, where the student of comparative religions will be able to perceive the influence of Hakka, the teachings of Tehuti in every religion worthy of the name now known to man as Moses, Christism, Mohammedism, Buddhism, Theoism, and all others isms, whether it be a dead religion or one in full vigor in our own times with new names, there is always a certain correspondence, in spite of the contradictory features, and the Tehuti teachings acts as the great reconciler. The life work of Tehuti seems to have been in the direction of planting the great seed, truth, right knowledge, right wisdom, and right understanding, producing sound, right reasoning. The original truths taught by him have been kept intact in the original purity by a few men and women in each age who, refusing great numbers of the half-developed students and followers, followed the Hakka Tehuti secrets, and reserved their facts and best-kept secrets, best kept sacred for the few who were ready to comprehend and master it. From lip to ear, the truth has been handed down among the few. There have always been a few initiates in each generation and in the various lands of the earth who kept alive the sacred wisdom of the Tehuti teachings, Hakka, as it was called, and such have always been willing to use their minds to reteach the lesser minds of the outside world about the darkness of truth. There were always a few who tend to the altar of the truth and facts, keepers of the temple upon which was kept for secrets the perpetual truth of existence before the light. These beings devoted their lives to the labor of love. These men and women have never sought popular approval. They were always hated, called cults of all kinds. They are indifferent to those things. They know how few there are in each generation who are ready for the real truth. But now has the time come for the mummy to get up out of the sarcophagus of religion and falsehood. From old global carbon organic culture and civilization of Tamari, Egypt have come the fundamental teachings which have so strongly influenced the philosophies of all races, nations, religions, and peoples for thousands of years. The Tamarian culture of the Africas and Americas, the Pacific and the Atlantic, the homes of the pyramids, the sphinxes, the obelisks, was the birthplace of all hidden wisdom and mystic teachings. From secret doctrine of all nations have borrowed. India, Sumeria, Persia, Chaldea, Media, China, Japan, Syria, ancient Greece, Rome, and other ancient and modern countries partook liberally at the feast of right knowledge called Haka, which were hierophants and masters of the land of Re, the god of life and light, the sun, so freely provided for those who came prepared to partake of the great store of mystic and occult law which the masterminds of the ancient land had received from beings from beyond this planet Earth, called the heavens. In ancient Tamari Egypt dwelt the greater adepts and masters who have never been surpassed and who have never been equaled during the centuries that have taken their processional flight since the days of the great Tehuti. In Egypt was located the great lodges of the mystics, the great temple of temples. At the doors of its temples entered the neophytes, who, afterward, as hierophants, adepts and masters, traveled to the four corners of the earth, carrying with them the precious knowledge which they were ready, anxious, and willing to pass on to those who were ready to receive the same. All students of the truth recognize the debt that they owe to these venerable masters of that ancient land, Tamar, Egypt, but among these great masters of ancient Egypt, there once throughout, one of whom masters held as the master of masters. This man, if man indeed he was, dwelt in Egypt in the earliest days. He was known by many names worldwide, but Tehuti was his name. He was the father of the teachings of Haka. All occults, mystics, secret orders, and magic comes from Haka, the sacred wisdom, the founder of astrology, the discoverer of alchemy. The details of his life story is he has no mother, nor father, no beginning of days, nor end of days, owing to the lapse of the years, though several of the ancient countries disputed with each other in their claim to the honor of having furnished his birthplace. The date of his sojourn in ancient Egypt, and that, his last incarnation on this planet, is now known. It has been fixed at the early days of the oldest dynasties of Egypt. Years after, the people of ancient Greece made him one of their many gods, calling him Hermes, the god of wisdom. The Jews called him Melchizedek. The Muslims call him Al-Qadir or Nabi Qadir, known as Karama. The Egyptians revered his memory for many centuries, tens of centuries, calling him the scribe of the gods, when translated into English, and bestowing upon him, distinctively his ancient title Trismegistus, which means the thrice great, meaning he will incarnate into flesh 3 times, once in Genesis 14:18, twice in Hebrews 7:1. In all of the ancient lands, the name of Hermes Trismegistus was revered, the name being synonymous with the fountain of wisdom. Even to this day, we use the term Hermetic in the sense of secret, sealed so that nothing can escape, and this by reason of the fact that the followers of Hermes always observed the principle of secrecy in their teachings. They did not believe in casting pearls before swine, but rather held on to the teachings, both of which maxims are familiar to readers of the monotheist scriptures, Torah, Gospel, Quran, but the Egyptians had used both of which for centuries before the Jewish, Muslim, or Christian era. This policy of careful dissemination of the truth has always characterized the sacred wisdom even unto this present day. Haka teachings are to be found in all lands, among all religions, but never identified with any particular country, nor with any particular religious sect. There are 720 degrees and 2 sections of 360 degrees physical and 360 degrees spiritual, yet they say, we hold in our position 9 degrees only. The true Tehuti teachings were found in Egypt of old and incarnated in the ancient Egyptian order today in the West, in the heart, hidden hands of God in flesh, Adam Re, the first point of light. The ancient occultism of India and Persia degenerated and was largely lost owing to the fact that the teachers became priests and so mixed theology and philosophy with the facts. The result being that the occultism of India and Persia had been gradually lost amidst a mess of religious superstitions, cults, faiths, beliefs, creeds, and spirit gods, and these gods are in conflict with each other. So it was with the ancient Sumer and Mayans. It was not so with the Tehuti teachings of old, kept protected by a few. The Gnostics and early Christians even touched this. None was lost in the time of Constantine, whose iron hands smothered Egyptian facts with the blanket of philosophy and theology, losing it in the Christian church and later the Muslim mosque, which was its very essence and spirit, and causing it to grope throughout several centuries before it found the way back to its ancient roots. But there were always a few loyal souls who kept alive the truth, tending it carefully, and not allowing its secrets to become destroyed by the children of light and chaos, the hybrid albino and his amalgamated seed. Thanks to these staunch hearts and fearless minds, we have the truth still with us. It has passed along from master to student, from hierophant to initiate, from lip to ear. When it was written down at all, its meaning was veiled in terms of alchemy and astrology and secret symbolism, so that only those possessing the master key could read it aright. This was made in order to avoid the persecutions of the theologians of the Middle Ages, who fought the secret doctrines with the light, fire, and sword, stake, gibbet, cross, and crescent. Even to this day there will be found but few reliable books on the teachings, although there are countless references to it in many books on various phases to occultism, and yet the Tehuti teachings is the only master key which will open all the doors of the occult teachings. In the early days, there was a compilation of certain basic Hakka doctrines passed on from teacher to student, which was known as Pa Saran Hakumdum, the secret wisdom, the exact significance and meaning of the term having been the secret wisdom. This teaching, however, is known to many to whom it has descended from mouth to ear on and on throughout the centuries. Its precepts have never been totally written down or printed. It was merely a collection of maxims, axioms, and precepts which were non-understandable to outsiders and passed from word of mouth to ear, but which were readily overstandable by students after the axioms, maxims, and precepts had been explained and exemplified by the Hakka initiates to their neophytes. These teachings really constituted the basic principles of the art of ancient carbon organic Tamarian alchemy, which, contrary to the general belief, dealt in the mastery of mental forces, rather than material elements, and transmutation of one kind of mental vibrations into others, instead of changing of one kind of metal into another. Did all students of true Hakka overstand an allegory relating to Tehuti's teaching readily the legends of the philosopher's stone, which would turn base metal into gold? In the words of Pa Saran Hakumdum, don't be deceived by the Hellenistic Greeks altering the teaching, calling it the Kyballion, when it was not. Let's set the record straight, and let us also be clear it was the Hellenistic Greeks and not the ancient Greeks known as Pelasgian Greece, which was the carbon organic progenitors of Greece as covered in our Fallacy of Greece and Rome series. The 9 Tehuti doctrines upon which the entire Tehuti teaching is based are as follows. 1. The doctrine of mental. 2. The doctrine of correspondence. 3. The doctrine of vibration. 4. The doctrine of polarity. 5. The doctrine of rhythm. 6. The doctrine of cause and effect. 7. The doctrine of gender. 8. The doctrine of growth. 9. The doctrine of breath. These 9 doctrines will be discussed and explained in later webisodes. As we have stated, the Egyptians were the original alchemists, astrologers, and psychologists, Tehuti having been the founder of these schools of thought. It was called Hakka. From solar biology, astrology, and modern astronomy has come. From alchemy has grown modern chemistry, from the mystic Wa priest has grown the modern psychology of the schools. But it must not be supposed that the ancients were ignorant of that which the modern schools suppose to be their exclusive and special property. The records engraved on the stones of ancient Egypt show conclusively that ancients had a full comprehensive knowledge of solar biology, which gave birth to the zodiac and astrology, speculative, and astronomy, operative, the very building of the pyramids, showing a connection between their design and the study of the stars, mainly Septet Sirius and Sahu Orion. The Egyptians were master astronomers. They were not ignorant of chemistry. They, in fact, were the mothers and fathers of all learning. The fragments of the ancient writings show that they were the masters of the chemical properties of things. In fact, the ancient facts regarding physics are being slowly verified by the latest discoveries of modern science, notably those relating to the constitution of matter, things that ancient Egyptians knew all along, and we will prove throughout this series. This is why it is important for the hybrid albinos and their pale hybrid albino so-called Arab cousins to steal the identity of the true carbon organic inhabitants of the region with their whitewashed propaganda, as their inbuilt racism cannot stand the fact that carbon organic melanated tribes, families, and clans are the true progenitors of civilizations and culture the world over. So you have discoveries, which really means discover, to uncover things already known, much like Columbus discovering America. Now that the atom has been exposed to not be the smallest of all things in existence, they were not ignorant of the so-called modern discoveries and the workings of the mind. On the contrary, the Egyptians were especially skilled in the science of the working of the mind, particularly in the branches where the modern schools ignore, but which nevertheless are being uncovered under the name of psychic science, paranormal, which is perplexing the psychologists of today and the religious leaders, and making them reluctantly admit that there is something in it after all. The Egyptians had the secrets. The hybrid albino Europeans did not know anything. They had no sciences or knowledge, as their own white light blinded them. The truth is that beneath the material chemistry, astronomy, and the working of the mind, that is the physical and mental workings of the brain, the ancients possessed the knowledge of transcendental astronomy, operative, called astrology, speculative, of transcendental chemistry, called alchemy, of transcendental psychology, called mysticism. They possessed the inner knowledge as well as the outer knowledge, the latter alone being possessed by modern scientists. Among the many secret branches of knowledge possessed by the Egyptians was that known as mental transmutation. Transmutation is a term usually employed to designate the ancient art of the transmutation of metals, particularly of the base metals, into gold. The word transmute means to change from one nature, form, or substance into another, to transform, and accordingly, mental transmutation means the art of changing and transforming mental states, forms, and conditions into others. So you may see the mental transmutation is the art of mental chemistry, if you like, return a form of practical mysticism. But this means far more than appears on the surface. Transmutation, alchemy, or chemistry are on the mental plane, the fourth plane, the first being the physical, the second being the plane of force, the third the spiritual plane, and the fourth, the mental plane, is important enough in its effects, to be sure, and if the art stopped there, it would still be one of the most important branches of study known to mortals. But this is only the beginning. The first of the 9 Tehuti doctrines is the doctrine of mentalism, the axiom, which is the all is mind. This is not true, for the mind is in the all, and the all is in all, and the universe is mental, and the universe is in the all, which means that the underlying reality of the universe is mind. Mental and etheric cords connect each mortal to a mind, and the universe itself is physical and mental, that is existing in the mind of the all in two forms, physical and mental. We shall consider this doctrine in succeeding degrees, but let us see the effect of the doctrine if it be assumed to be true. If the universe is mind in its nature, is God, or the grand architect of the universe, Yahweh, Allah, or Theos, then mental transmutation must be the art of changing the conditions of the universe along the lines of matter, force, and mind, solid, liquid, gas, person, place, or things. The triad doctrines as discussed in our third webisode called Space, Matter and Time, and the Law of Triads webisode. So you see, therefore the mental transmutation is really the magic of which the ancient writers had so much to say in their mystical works, and about which they give so few practical instructions. If all be mental, then the art which enables one to transmute mental conditions must be met, must render the master the controller of the material conditions, as well as roles ordinarily called mental. As a matter of fact, none but advanced mental alchemists have been able to attain the degree of power necessary to control the growth of physical conditions, such as the control of the elements of nature that would make them a god or supreme being, the production or cessation of tempests, the production and cessation of earthquakes, rain, hail, and other great physical phenomena. These beings were God. But that such mortals have existed and do exist today is a matter of earnest facts to all advanced occultists of all schools, which all came from the ancient Tamarian global culture whittled down to a location in Northeast Africa today called Egypt. The masters exist and have these powers. The best teachers are sure of their students, having had experiences which justify them in such realities and statements. These Netarot supreme beings do not make public exhibitions of their powers, but seek seclusion from the crowds of mortals as mortal living and acting as the normal in order to better work their way along the path of attainment and to bring others with them. We mentioned their existence, at this point, merely to call your attention to the fact that their power is entirely mental and operates along the lines of the higher mental transmutation, under the Tamarian doctrine of mentalism. The universe is mental and mental is in the all. The all is I am. The all is physical, the existence, the definite article, substantial reality. Substance means that which underlies all manifestations, substance, person, places, things, the essence, the essential reality, the thing in itself, etc. Substantial means actually existing, being the essential element, being real, etc. Reality means the state of being real, true, enduring, valid, fixed, permanent, actual, etc. Under and behind all outward appearances or manifestations. There must always be a substantial reality. This is the law. Mortals, considering the universe of which they are a unit, see nothing but change in matter, forces, and mental states. They see that nothing or no one thing is all things. Nothing stands still. Everything is being born, growing, dying. The very instant a thing reaches its height, it begins to decline into another state of existence. The law of rhythm is in constant operation. There is no reality enduring quality, fixity, or substantiality in anything. All things are permanent, but change, yet never gone. The mental and physical is one state vibrating at different speeds. They see all things evolving from other things and resolving into other things. Yet they all exist. Nothing is totally gone. If so, where do they go? A constant action and reaction, inflow and outflow, building up and tearing down, creation and destruction, and even destruction means to destroy, not to eliminate, and to remove means simply to move again, birth, growth and death. At death, it's not over, over means above that's all, nothing endures but change. And if they are thinking mortals, they realize that all of these changing things must be but outward appearances or manifestations of some underlying power, some substantial reality. All thinkers in all lands and in all times have assumed the necessity for postulating the existence of this substantial reality. For all is, and there all became God by many names. All doctrines worthy of the name have been based upon this thought. Mortals have given to this substantial reality many names: Yahweh, Theos, Dios, Allah, Adonai. Some have even called it by the term of Supreme Being, under many titles. Others have called it the infinite and eternal energy, but all have acknowledged its existence. It is self-evident. It needs no argument. You exist, so some powerful force by whichever name exists through you. They are your blood seed linked through your family. If you are watching this webisode now, then you existed thousands of years ago in and through your blood seed. The ancient carbon organic Egyptians accept and teach that the all in itself is and must ever be unknowable to those who fear the reality that they are part of God and thus gods themselves. The Egyptians had no problem with this. They regard all the theories, guesses, and speculations of the theologians and metaphysicians regarding the inner nature of the all as but the childish efforts of mortal minds to grasp the secret of the infinite, or which they must be a part if they exist, even if God, or God, said, poof, and they were created. Still, they would have had to exist in God's mind and God's being to come into existence. But those blinded by religious light can never see this, but they must. One pursuing such inquiries travels around and around in a labyrinth of thought until he or she is lost to all sane reason in action or conduct and is utterly unfitted for the work of life and can't face reality. He or she is like the hamster which frantically runs around and around the circling treadmill wheel of his own cage, traveling ever and yet reaching nowhere, at the end a prisoner still, and standing just where she started with no proof. They must teach you get your answers at death so that you won't seek to know while you live. But while the essential nature of the all is knowable, as you, in you, about you, there are certain truths connected with it, with its existence, which the human mind finds itself compelled to accept. And an examination of these reports forms a proper subject of inquiry, particularly as we agree with the reports of the priests or those on the higher planes. That which is the fundamental truth, the substantial reality, is not beyond true naming, but the wise called it pa tempta, the all. In its essence, the all is knowable. For if you are the all, and you are knowable, then the all is knowable. The human reason, whose reports we must accept, so long as we think at all, informs us as follows, regarding the all, and that without attempting to remove the veil of the knowable. We need not remove the veil of God, but rather just go up and take the mask and put it on to inherit your responsibility as a child of God and a God yourself. One, that the all must be all that really is. There can be nothing existing outside the all, else the all would not be the all, even the all is an all. 2. The all must be the infinite, as infinite is infinite, and there is nothing else to define, confine, bound, limit, or restrict all. But the all has the distinction of being the all, as if there are others, but they are not the one we are talking about. It must be infinite in time, in a finite state of time, or eternal. It must have always continuously existed, for there is nothing else to have ever created it, and something can never evolve from nothing, and if it had ever not been, even for a moment, it would not be now. It must continually exist forever, for there is nothing to destroy it, and it can never not be even for a moment, because something can never become nothing. It must be infinite in space. Infinite exists in blackness, infinite. It must be everywhere, for there is no place outside of all. It cannot be otherwise than continuous in space, without break, cessation, separation, or interruption, for there is nothing to break, separate, or interrupt its continuity, and nothing with which to fill in the gaps. It must be infinite in power, or absolute darkness, for there is nothing to limit, restrict, restrain, confine, disturb, or condition blackness but light. Black is far, black is near, or night. As night, it is subject to no other power, stronger than black. 3. The all must be immutable or not subject to change in its real nature. The all has a nature, for you are the all, and all, as inside all. All is not nature, but is nature moving in it, for there is nothing to work changes upon all, but the all can grow within all, nothing into which it could change, nor from which it could have changed. It cannot be added to, nor subtracted from, increased nor diminished, nor become greater or lesser in any respect whatsoever. It must have always been and must always remain just what it is now. All there has never been is not now, and never will be, anything else into what it can change. The all is it, but all can't really be called in it. It is also an all being infinite, absolute, eternal, and unchangeable. It must follow that anything finite, changeable, fleeting, and conditioned cannot be all, but can happen in all. This was your way of life long before monotheism. We see around us that which is called matter, which forms a physical foundation for all forms. Is the all merely matter? Are you just a body? Not at all. Mere matter cannot manifest life or mind, and as life is manifested in the universe, mind is unmanifested, yet exists in the all and cannot be only matter, for nothing rises higher than its own source. Nothing is ever manifested in an effect that is not the cause. Nothing is evolved as a consequence that is not evolved as an antecedent. And then modern science informs us that there is really no such thing as matter through the study of quantum physics. That which we call matter is merely interrupted energy or force, that is, energy or force at a low rate of vibration. This is why the Kyballion needs updating, being written wrong in 1912, then again in 1940, long before the new realities like the splitting of the atom and antimatter, as well as quarks and zeals. Many things today means that the old Kyballion today is wrong information, misleading many. Matter has melted into mystery. That is my story, not his story. His story became history. Even material sciences have abandoned the theory of matter, and now rest on the basis of energy, and not a God created this or that, for where is the proof? Is the all mere energy or force? not energy or force as the materialists use the terms, for their energy and force are blind, mechanical things devoid of life or mind. Life and mind can never evolve from blind energy or force called light, for the reason being all things originated from and in darkness. Nothing rises higher than its source. Nothing is evolved unless it is involved. Nothing manifests in the effect unless it is the cause, and so all cannot be mere energy or force, for, if it were, then there would be no such things as life and mind in the human or existence, and we know better than that, because you need both life and mind to watch and comprehend this video, for we are alive and using mind to consider this very question, and so are those who claim that energy or force is everything as their God, wrong. What is there higher than matter or energy that we know to be existent in the universe? Life and mind. Life and mind in all their varying degrees of unfoldment. Then you ask, do you mean to tell us that all is life and mind? Yes and no is our answer. If you mean life and mind, as we poor petty mortals know them, we say, no, all is not that. But what kind of life and mind do you mean, you ask? The answer is living mind is the all. Mind is all, as far above that which mortals know by those words, as life and mind are higher than mechanical forces or matter, infinite, living mind as compared to finite life and mind. We mean that which the learned souls mean when they reverently pronounce the word Ka, spirit. The all is infinite, living mind, the life of the spirit. But all is in all, as you are all humans. For all is physical and all is spirit. But what is spirit? There are many degrees or vibrational modes to spiritual existence or spirit beings. This question cannot be answered by just saying, the spirit is this or that body or exoplasma. The reason is that its definition is practically that the all is a form of God, which cannot be explained or defined in religion or faith, but science is the key. Spirit is simply a name that mortals give to the highest conception of infinite living mind. It means the real essence, it means living mind, as much superior to life and mind as we know them, as the latter are superior to mechanical energy and matter. Spirit does not transcend our overstanding. Spirit is us, just as matter is us, and the emotional is us, as soul, and we use the term merely that we think or speak of the all as other than us. The all is the son of all. For the purposes of thought and overstanding, we are justified in thinking of the spirit as infinite, living mind at the same time acknowledging that we can fully overstand Ka the spirit, Ba the soul, and Kat the body. We must either do this or stop thinking of the matter at all, because all things that matter has spirit, and if it cares, it has soul. Let us now proceed to the consideration of the nature of the universe as a whole and in its parts. What is the universe? We have seen that there can be nothing outside of all. Then, is the universe all? No, but it's the all, as you are a universe. But the universe cannot be all, because the universe seems to be made up of man-made particles of matter, and it is constantly changing, and in other ways, it does not measure up to the ideas that we are compelled to accept regarding all as stated in our previously paragraphs. Then, if the universe be not all, but in all, then it must be something, or things as it is, such is the inevitable conclusion of the mind at first thought, and has been proven. But this will not satisfy the question, for we are sensible of the existence of the universe, and that tells us that it's the all, not all. And if the universe is the all, and not all, nor nothing, but something, what can it be? Let us examine this question. If the universe exists at all, or seems to exist, it must proceed in some way from all. It must be a creation of all, created as the all, in which things exist, but as something can never come from nothing, from which could all have created it. It was not created. It always existed, because even time would exist in all, as a part of the all. Some wise men have answered this question by saying that all created the universe, the all from itself, and that's true, that is, from the being and substance of all you get the all. But this will not do, for all cannot be subtracted from, nor divided, as we have seen, and then again, if this be so, would not each particle in the universe be aware of its being? Yes, but as the all in all could not lose its knowledge of itself, nor actually become an atom, or blind force, or lowly living thing. This is the job of the all. Some mortals, indeed, realizing that all is indeed all, and also recognizing that they, the mortals existed, have jumped to the conclusion that they and the all were identical, and they have filled the air with shouts of, "I am God," to the amusement of the multitude and the sorrow of the sages, for this is very true. All is God, and God is in all. The claim of the corpuscle that I am flesh will be modest in comparison and limited. But what indeed is the universe? Look at it this way, uni one, and verse meaning to go against, therefore meaning against oneness. You see, the trick is in the word. So all is against oneness or individualism, which is separation into parts. If it were not all, not yet created by all, having separated itself into fragments, as the all or all things. What else can it be? Of what else can it be made, and of what else can it be created or grown? This is the great question, and it's simple. The all is, and I am and I would not be if all weren't. Let us examine it carefully. We find here that the doctrine of correspondence comes to our aid, the old Egyptian axiom as above, so below may be pressed into service at this point. But to really say, as above, so below, again, is a form of separation to make you think there really is an above separated from a below. Think for a moment, and you will see right through that trick. It's the same as separating the waters on earth by names. You will begin to accept the Indian Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, as two separate masses of water when they are not. Let us endeavor to get a glimpse of the workings on higher planes by examining roles on our own. You see, there it is again, higher planes. The doctrine of correspondence must apply to this as well as to other problems. Let us see, on their own plane of being, how do mortals create? Well, first, they may create by making something out of outside materials. But this will not do, for there are no materials outside of all with which it may create, but it may be made or shaped and fashioned. Secondly, mortals procreate or reproduce their kind by the process of begetting, which is self-multiplication accomplished by transferring a portion of his substance to their offspring to grow in the womb. But this will not do because all cannot transfer or subtract a portion of itself. All cannot grow, the all can, but all cannot become less than all and remain all, nor can it reproduce or multiply itself in the first place, as there would be a taking away, and in the second case, a multiplication or an addition to all, both thoughts being an absurdity. Each new thing in all is not new, but was always there. You are not something new, as a new outside creation. That's why the real meaning of creation is to grow. You are here, was there, and will be everywhere at all times. Is there no third way in which mortals create? Yes, there is. They create mentally. And in doing so, they use no outside materials, nor do they reproduce for themselves. And yet their spirit pervades the mental creation. Following the doctrine of correspondence, which we will cover in depth in later webisodes, we are justified in considering that all creates a universe mentally as the all, in a manner akin to the process whereby mortals create mental images. As image merely means imagination, as figure merely means the number figure or a picture figure. And here's where the report of reason tallies precisely with the report of the working mind, as shown by the teachings and writings. Such are the teachings of Tehuti. Such as the teachings held sacred within the confines of the carbon organic ancient Tamarian orders. All can create in no other way except mentally, and takes place inside all, as does the all without either using material, and there is none to use, if all is all, or else it would be reproducing itself, which is also impossible. If you see all as creating, making, fashioning, or growing outside of itself, as the fools of religion want you to believe, is also folly. There is no reason, which, as we have said, agrees with the highest teachings of the working mind. Just as you may create a universe of your own in your mentality, so does all create universes in its own mentality, of which we are a part. But your universe is the mental creation of a finite mind. The all is within it, whereas that of all is the creator of infinite and finite. The two are really one of a kind, but infinitely different in degree. We shall examine more closely into the process of creation and manifestation as we proceed in later webisodes. But this is the point to fix your minds at this stage. The universe and all its contents are a mental creation of all. Verily, indeed, all is mental and mind, and we all are all in all. Do not make the mistake of supposing that the little world you see around you, the earth, which is a mere grain of dust in the universe, is the universe itself. There are millions upon millions of such worlds and greater, and there are millions of such universes in existence within the infinite mind of all, and you can and will visit all of them on this great journey. And even in our own little solar system, in your solar plexus, there are regions and planes of life far higher than yours, and beings compared to which you earthbound mortals are as slimy life forms that dwell on the ocean's bed when compared to mortals. There are beings with powers and attributes higher than mortals have ever dreamed, and yet these beings were once as you, and still lower, and you will be even as they, and still higher in time, for such is the destiny of mortals, as reported by the working minds. And death is not real, even in a relative sense. It is but a birth to a new life in all, and you shall go on and on and on to higher and still higher planes of life, for eons upon eons of time. The universe is your home, and you can never explore its farthest recesses, nor reach the end of time, for they don't exist in all. You are dwelling in the finite link to the infinite mind of all, and your possibilities and opportunities are not limited, both in time and space. And at the end of the grand cycle of eons, when all shall draw back into itself all of its creations, you will go gladly, for you will then be able to know the whole truth of being at one with all. Such is the report of the Creator, Master Tehuti, those who have advanced well along the path, and in the meantime, rest, calm and serene, you are safe and protected by the infinite power of the Mother Mind, manifested as the Father Protector called Bes. To take familiar illustrations, we all realize the fact that matter exists to our senses. We will fare badly if we do not. And yet, even our finite minds overstand the scientific dictum that there is no such thing as matter from a scientific point of view. That which we call matter is held to be merely an aggregation of atoms, where atoms themselves are merely a grouping of units of force, called electrons or ions, vibrating and in constant circular motion. We kick a stone and we feel the impact. It seems to be real, notwithstanding that we know it to be merely what we have just stated. But remember that our foot, which feels the impact by means of our brains, is likewise matter, so constituted of electrons, and for that matter so are our brains. And, at the best, if it were not by reason of our mind, we would not know the foot or stone at all. And our personal mind is linked to a mental reservoir of thought, thinking, ideas, from the all in all. So we need not dwell upon the feature of illusion. Rather, let us recognize the real nature of the universe. Seek to understand its mental laws and endeavor to use them to the best effect in our upward progress through life as we travel from plane to plane of being. The laws of the universe are, none the less iron laws, because of the mental nature, all, except all, are bound by them. They bind even the all. What is in the infinite mind of the all is real in a degree, second only to that reality itself, which is vested in the nature of all. Matter is nonetheless matter to us while we dwell on the plane of matter, although we know it to be merely an aggregation of electrons or particles of force, vibrating rapidly and gyrating around each other in the formations of atoms, the atoms in turn vibrating and gyrating, forming molecules, which later in turn form larger masses of matter. Nor does matter become less matter. When we follow the inquiry still further and learn from the ancient carbon organic Tamarian/Egyptian teachings, that the force of which we electrons are but units is merely a manifestation of the mind of all, and like all else in the universe, is purely mental in its nature. While on the plane of matter, we must recognize its phenomena. We may control matter as all masters of higher or lesser degree do, but we do so by applying the higher forces. We commit a folly when we attempt to deny the existence of matter in the relative aspect. We may deny its mastery over us, and rightly so, but we should not attempt to ignore it in its relative aspect, at least so long as we dwell upon its plane. Nor do the laws of nature become less constant or effective when we know them, likewise, to be merely mental creations. They are in full effect on the various planes. We overcome the lower laws by applying still higher ones, and in this way only. But we cannot escape law or rise above it entirely. Nothing but all can escape law, and that's because of all is the law in all itself from which all laws emerge. Most advanced masters may acquire the powers usually attributed to the Netarot, supreme being of mortals, and there are countless ranks of being in the great hierarchy of life whose being and power transcends even that of the highest masters among mortals to a degree unthinkable by mortals, that even the highest master and the highest being must bow to the law and be as nothing in the eye of the all which is in all. So that if even these highest beings, whose powers exceed even those attributed by mortals to their gods, if even these are bound by it and are subservient to the law, then imagine the presumption of mortal man, of our race and grade, when he dares to consider the laws of nature as unreal, visionary, and illusory, because he happens to be able to grasp the truth that the laws are mental in nature, and simply mental creations of all. Those laws which the all intends to be governing laws are not to be defied or argued away, so long as the universe endures. Your universe exists by virtue of these laws, which form its framework and which holds it together. The ancient carbon organic doctrine of mentalism, while explaining the true nature of the universe upon the doctrine that all is mental, does not change the scientific conceptions of the universe, life, or evolution. In fact, science merely corroborates the ancient Tamarian teachings. The latter merely teaches about the nature of the universe is mental, while modern science has taught you that it is material, and of late, that it is energy at the last analysis. The Tamarian teachings have no fault to find with the Egyptians' basic doctrine, which postulates with existence of infinite and eternal energy from which all things proceed. In fact, the Egyptians recognized these thousands of years ago, the highest outside statement of the workings of the natural laws that have ever been promoted. The line of the Tamarian teachings, always with the addition of their own doctrine, that his energy is the energy of the mind of all. With the Angmaster key of the Tamarian doctrine, the student of the ancient carbon organic Tamarian orders will be able to unlock many doors of the inner doctrine conceptions of the great master teacher Tum Re, whose work shows the results of the preparation of his previous incarnations. His teachings regarding evolution and rhythm, in perfect agreement with the Tehuti teachings of rhythm, of which we will cover in later webisodes on the 9 doctrines of Tehuti. We do not live in a world of dreams, but in a universe which, while relative, is real, so far as our lives and actions are concerned. Our business in the universe is not to deny existence, but to live using the laws to rise from lower to higher, living on, doing the best that we can under the circumstances, rising each day as the sun Tum Re, and living through the day as Aten Re, so far as is possible, to our highest ideals, and going to rest as Amen Re. The highest authorities, and our own intuitions, teach us that we will make no mistake in living up to the best that is in us, so far as is possible, realizing the universal tendency in the same direction in spite of evidences to the contrary. We are all on the path, and the road leads upward, ever with frequent resting places. We hope you have an understanding of this webisode and look out for our in-person breakdowns of all our generated content for better clarity. Remember to hit subscribe and the notification button so that you won't miss a webisode of the Science of Creation series according to African Cosmology. Peace.